For an MMA fighter, reaching the UFC means fulfilling a dream and competing with the world's elite, even though only the best get there. That does not mean they cannot get finished in some smaller organizations by lesser known people. Other competitors would be eager to brag about knocking out a former UFC fighter. Today's section is just like that. Subscribe to our channel and let's look at some of the quality knockouts of former UFC fighters. Michael Chandler opened his career with 12 consecutive victories, stayed for 10 years. He won the lightweight championship 3 times, and it can be said that he has completely shined in Bellator for all the years of competition. Mike has always been there to bring a good fight and a decade of competition, and now he's here to wreak havoc in the promotion with active and bloody fights, win or lose, of UFC lightweight category. In 2024, his favorite match so far awaits him against Conor McGregor. The electrifying Michael made his career a quality show and a way to make good money with something he loves doing. However, in 31 matches with 23 wins and 8 losses, UFC, and the first one happened against Will Brooks after a siege of strikes in the 2014 title fight. After the defeat, Michael immediately returned to winning ways, and 4 years later, he was stopped again by a knockout by Patricio Pitbull in a champion against champion super fight. Pitbull managed to get the job done in the first round, knocking out Chandler and becoming a double champion.
Unpredictable! Chandler gets rocked by Patricio Pitbull! You talk about unpredictable! The referee has intervened, and Patricio Pitbull...
The Mad Titan is a Cape Verdean professional MMA fighter who has built his career by depriving people of their consciousness. De Castro turned professional not so long ago because he has been performing since 2017, where he recorded 9 victories, of which 6 were knockouts, 1 submission, and 2 decisions, and he also has 5 defeats. He reached the Dana White Contender Series with the help of his hand artillery because he knocked out 5 fighters in the first 6 matches. Yorgan is best known for his left hook knockout over Justin Tafa at UFC 243, where he also won the Performance of the Night bonus. After that, De Castro went downhill as he collected 3 consecutive losses in the UFC. Following his UFC release, he won 1 match for the CES organization and won 2 successful battles at Eagle FC. It seemed that Yorgan found his way again, and after performing in Khabib's organization, he arrived at PFL, where he again had a bad losing streak. After being defeated by decision by Danilo Marquez, Titan returns less than 2 months later, but only to be brutally knocked out by Russian fighter Denis Goltsov with 2 sharp punches in just 18 seconds. Bad luck obviously did not leave Yorgan, and he still hasn't recovered from this defeat. Old school fans certainly remember Tim Sylvia, and it wouldn't be bad if new MMA fans were reminded of this veteran. Since his first performance in 2001, the Maniac has gone undefeated in the first 16 matches, collecting KO after KO. What's even more interesting is that he fought all those matches in just 2.5 years. With his second appearance for the UFC, he managed to get hold of the heavyweight belt, which was later stripped from him because he failed a doping test. He shared the cage with the greatest fighters of his era. Some he won, some he lost, but he was always there to give the fans what they wanted to see. After 5 active years and 13 matches for the UFC, Sylvia once again became the heavyweight champ. But after 2 title defenses, the championship was taken away from him by Randy Couture. Tim went on to find his luck in other promotions, and in 2009, performing for the Adrenaline MMA organization, he fought a match against the famous boxer Ray Mercer, who made his debut in MMA. This match was supposed to be quick and easy for Tim, but of the 2, it was just quick.
Ready, aim, fire. Good night. End of story. And Mercer looked like...
The veteran of the sport with 31 wins, 22 by knockout, suddenly found himself on the other side of the beating. And Mercer needed 9 short seconds to stick Sylvia to the floor with his brutal boxing right. Tim, being a hardcore MMA fighter, bounced back with 4 wins, but was knocked out again in 30 seconds by Abe Wagner, who cleaned him up with a barrage of punches. Another old guard fighter with over 50 fights is a maniac on the mic and in the cage. Quinton Rampage Jackson. Retired Rampage is a former light heavyweight champion of the UFC who had many different outcomes on his numerous record. Jackson has gone through all possible situations in his fights. He performed for the UFC 12 times in 5 years, and is one of those fighters that even consecutive defeats could not separate him from competing in the cage. Considering almost 2 decades of competition, Quinton's chin has proved to be super durable. And out of 14 losses, he has only been knocked out 4 times. After going to Bellator from the UFC, the old Rampage won the Bellator Season 10 light heavyweight tournament, after which he won another match for the UFC and returned to Bellator again, where he was nearing the end of his career. That end came in 2019 when he found himself in the cage with legendary Fedor Emelianenko. Jackson was visibly out of shape against Fedor, who's been in top shape all his life. Rampage's poor performance turned him into a punching bag, which Fedor took advantage of and ended the one-sided beating with a brutal knockout in the first round.
Big shot, and it is over.
Jackson was smart enough to call it a day as far as his fighting career was concerned, leaving an impressive legacy behind him. Many MMA careers ended sadly, and Magic Marlon Moraes is one of them. Moraes is a former dominant WSOF bantamweight champion with 5 title defenses where he finished 5 of his opponents in superior fashion. He arrived in the UFC in 2017, and although he lost his debut, he excelled in the next 4 fights with performance of the night bonuses and wins against high competition, such as Dodson, Sterling, Rivera, and Assunção. Marlon had a chance for the vacant bantamweight UFC title against Henry Cejudo, but it ended with a technical knockout by the Messenger. In the same year, he returns against Jose Aldo, where he takes a victory, not knowing it will be the last of his life. Magic Marlon went on a terrible 4-fight losing streak in the UFC, where he was knocked out in every match. He left for the PFL in 2022, but things got worse as Marlon completely lost his luster. On his debut, he was brutally knocked out by Shaman Moraes. Then, he was chopped down with leg kicks against Brendan Loughnane, and after 3 months, he was knocked out by Gabriel Alves Braga with the 7th knockout in a row. Unfortunately, after this awful streak, Marlon retired from the sport with full justification. Tyron Woodley is certainly one of the unluckiest people in MMA. In his younger days, he excelled in the Strikeforce promotion, and 4 years later, he came to the UFC, where he recorded several interspersed defeats and victories. It took Woodley a little time to get used to the UFC competition, and his fame finally came when he won the welterweight championship with a brutal knockout against Robbie Lawler. One dominant champion was replaced by the other. Over the next 2 years, Tyron was at full throttle, defending his title twice against Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia, and Darren Till, showing his dominance. However, when 2019 came, things went in the worst possible direction for him, and his career turned into one of the worst in the UFC. As Dana White said, it's always something with Woodley, and he was absolutely right. Before his release from the UFC, Woodley suffered 4 defeats. These were indeed fights against top fighters, but the fact is that Tyron was not the same after the defeat by Usman and the loss of the title. In 2021, he engaged in a boxing match against YouTuber Jake Paul, who defeated him by a split decision in the first match. Tyron was supposed to light up the face of the MMA community, but he faltered. However, a rematch soon ensued, and the Chosen One reached rock bottom when Jake Paul brutally shut him down in the 6th round of their rematch. What an incredible fall from one of the great UFC fighters.
From time to time, just haven't been.
Johnny Walker has been through a lot of ups and downs in and out of the UFC, but what's certain is that there is no way the man is quitting. He'd managed to go on a winning streak, but after every few matches, he would break it. Walker entered 2017 with a record of 8 wins and 3 losses, but Johnny returned at a new level and started collecting wins. In 2018, he won the UCMMA and EBD light heavyweight championships, and through Dana White's Contender Series, he arrived to the UFC, where in the following years, he shared the octagon with fighters from the very top of the light heavyweight division. After a varied score, Johnny finally woke up in the middle of 2022, scored 3 wins, and is very close to getting his chance for the title. What binds Walker to our section today are the 4 brutal knockouts he experienced in just one fight. In a match against Henrique Silva Lopez at Jungle Fight 88, Walker was shut down multiple times in just 18 seconds of the first round.
3 grandes confrontos. Para você identificá-los, o Johnny Walker, que tomou uma diretaça de direita do Henrique Montoya.
We will not particularly comment on these multi-knockouts, as it's best to see for yourself. Who would have thought that a man could be knocked out in such an impressive manner? Miesha Tate is one of the loveliest female faces you've ever seen in the cage, hence her nickname Cupcake. Make no mistake, this Cupcake has a warrior heart that's been enjoying and participating in vicious women matches for 16 years. She's a multiple world MMA champ, whose wall of fame is decorated with the UFC bantamweight belt. Her roller coaster of a career makes her one of the best female fighters in the world, but opening her professional career proved to be arduous at the start. In 2007, she showed up for the first time as a professional. Participating in the Bodog Fight Women's Bantamweight Tournament, Miesha celebrated her debut with a decision, where she went one step further, but the semifinals of the tournament were nothing less than brutal for her. On the same night, she could experience the taste of victory and defeat at the beginning of her career. 20-year-old Miesha was stopped after 30 seconds of the match with a hellish high kick by Caitlin Young. What's important to note is that she received 3 strong high kicks in 15 seconds and was finally knocked out on the third. Fortunately, out of 29 total matches,
baseball bat to the face.
Tate only managed to be knocked out twice in 9 on other channels. Of course, other notable mentions are Adesanya, Demetrius Johnson, Chuck Liddell, Sage Northcutt, and others, but you've seen them all too many times. Share the video with your friends and tell us which knockout is the most brutal in your opinion. Remember to like, subscribe, keep your guard up, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.